The subcommittee will come to order. I ask unanimous consent that the chair be authorized to declare a recess at any time. Without objection, it is so ordered. Without objection, the first reading of the bill is dispensed with and the mark is open to amendment at any point. Without objection, members have 5 legislative days within which to submit written statements to be made part of the record. So ordered. I now recognize myself for an opening statement. Good morning. I would like to welcome the members here this morning to consider the Seapower and Projection Forces mark. I support today's mark. It represents months of work and input from every member of this subcommittee. I want to thank everyone for their engagement and the bipartisan nature in which it was accomplished. It is critical that we continue to grow the Navy's capabilities. The President's budget, however, proposed to build 9 ships in FY24 and only 7 in 2025. The administration also chose to divest 8 ships before the end of their expected service life. This is not the right signal to send China as they continue their trajectory to build a 500-ship fleet by 2030. We must also be able to project and sustain power far from our shores. Yet we continue to rely on 45-year-old ships and have failed to prioritize inter- and intra-theater logistics and support vehicles. It is my view the President's budget makes a critical misstep with the suggestion to press pause on the Marine's amphibious ship program. Let me be clear, we should maintain a minimum of 31 amphibious ships so that the Marines can meet their operational needs to project strength both in peace and times of conflict. I also support this mark because it sets a better course for U.S. Seapower by building on our naval strength, countering China, supporting our industrial base, and providing for important oversight. It fully supports key features, enablers, including the Columbia-class ballistic missile submarine and the B-21 bomber programs, which are critical efforts to modernize 2 legs of the nuclear triad. This mark also continues oversight of the KC-46 Alpha tankers, the extensive modernization of the B-52 bomber, and the continued recapitalization of KC-135 aircraft. Finally, I'd like to reiterate that we should be expanding our naval fleet rather than allowing it to contract. The recent 30-year shipbuilding plan indicates that the administration is taking the wrong approach by proposing to shrink the fleet. Over the past several hearings, we have heard testimony support reversing the trend in fleet size with innovative new platforms like unmanned vehicles, the new frigate, and others. But that will only happen with a focused, prioritized, and strong defense budget. I am confident this year's bill will make real progress. We need to use all of the levers available to us to seek and maintain our competitive edge over China. In closing, I want to thank Ranking Member Courtney for his friendship, leadership, and expertise. I could not ask for a better partner on our Seapower and Projection Forces team. I would also like to recognize Mr. Whitman, former chair and ranking member of this, for also being an integral part of this mark. I am glad to continue to work with him to solve our nation's most difficult challenges as we move forwards towards full committee markup, the floor, and during conference. I also want to thank Ian, Kyle, Kelly, Phil, and Ethan on the committee staff for all their hard work for the past few months preparing this remark. The chair will now recognize Mr. Courtney, the ranking member of the subcommittee, for any opening statements he would like to make.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And at the beginning, I just want to congratulate you on your outstanding leadership of the subcommittee in your maiden year as chair of the subcommittee, again, which has had a really long bipartisan history of cooperation. Indeed, from 1817 to 1947, the rules of the House codified the Committee on Naval Affairs as a freestanding committee, which over that 130 years did great things for our country. And I think you and all the members of this subcommittee lived up to that important legacy, which, again, we are the heirs of, to advance and safeguard our nation's maritime place in the world. And I, again, also want to salute Mr. Whitman, who had the gavel for a period of time, and we obviously worked together both as chairs and ranking members, respectively. So, again, this subcommittee really is a healthy corner of Congress. Mr. Chairman, I want to strongly support this mark, which builds on the steady increased investment which the subcommittee has plussed up over the last decade in shipbuilding, sealift, and airlift. I would note the shipbuilding account is $300 million higher than last year's fiscal year 2023 enacted level. And again, that came over with the President's budget, and we held to that number. And again, both of those numbers are the highest top lines in U.S. history for shipbuilding. And I think it's important to zoom out a little bit and keep perspective on that critical fact. As you point out, it recommends authorization of 10 Battle Force ships with a strong emphasis on recapitalizing our undersea fleet. $16 billion in submarine procurement, continuing the 2-per-year procurement cadence of the Virginia-class program, and the first tranche of incremental funding for the second boat of the Columbia-class ballistic submarine program, the USS Wisconsin. You're welcome, Mr. Gallagher. And as we have heard repeatedly from the Department of Defense and the Department of the Navy, this program is the #1 acquisition priority in the budget. In order to speed up the production of Wisconsin, our MARC makes prudent adjustments to the National Sea-Based Deterrence Fund by adding additional components authorized for multi-year procurement. For the record, this panel created this multi-year authority in 2015 to reduce pressure on the Navy's shipbuilding account and has saved taxpayers now hundreds of millions of dollars. And again, that originated right here in this subcommittee. But another important point is that this MARC authorizes new multi-year procurement for up to 13 Block 6 Virginia-class submarines. This proposal, coupled with unprecedented workforce and supplier development investment, sends a definitive message to our nation's industrial base in the wake of the pandemic that we are fully committed to restore the 2-per-year production level of the Virginia program and beyond. This is an especially crucial time to bolster our capabilities to meet our own domestic needs and simultaneously support the trilateral AUKUS agreement to provide Australia with conventionally armed nuclear-powered submarine program. I would note on the projection forces side, it fully funds the B-21 program and the KC-46 program. And again, I want to thank Kelly for her great work as usual in terms of helping the subcommittee get to that point. I would note that I know a number of members on the subcommittee are still very frustrated with the Navy and the Maritime Administration's prioritized of used vessel acquisition to meet sea lift requirements in a time of increased uncertainty of availability on the commercial market. I am concerned that the used market is insufficient to meet our needs, which is why our MARC requires the Department of Transportation to provide an assessment on the availability of used commercial vessels over the next 5 years and to provide this subcommittee with accurate data to assess the Navy's request. At the end of this month, the Philly Shipyard will celebrate the christening of the state-class training ship Empire State, the first ship of the National Security Multi-Mission Vessel Program, the NSMV. It was this panel that first authorized this program on a bipartisan basis to not just meet mariner training needs, but to invest in our domestic shipyard capacity. As a result, MARAD and the Philly Shipyard will deliver the first U.S.-built submarine that is delivering almost exactly on time and on budget, thanks to the model that this panel initiated in 2016. I firmly believe that we can and must follow this approach in addressing our broader sea lift requirements with a domestic new build program. And I look forward to working with Chairman Kelly and all the members in this subcommittee to address this as we move to full committee markup. Of course, the MARC today would not have happened without the tireless work of our subcommittee staff. I want to thank Phil McNaughton, our minority lead, Ian Bennett, the majority lead, and a strong Yukon Husky supporter, as well as Kelly Goggin and Kyle for their great work. And with that, I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
We will now proceed to mark up H.R. 2670, the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2024. Copies of our subcommittee mark and directive report language were made available and distributed to member offices on Friday, June 9th. Is there any discussion or questions on the subcommittee mark? If there is no further discussion, the chair lays before members the text of the subcommittee mark for consideration. Are there any amendments to the subcommittee mark? The question now occurs on the adoption of the mark. So many as are in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the mark is adopted. Motion to report the mark favorably to the full committee. Excuse me. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Virginia, all of our friend, Mr. Whitman, for the purpose of a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the subcommittee report the mark favorably to the full committee.
The question is on the motion from the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Whitman. So many as are in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The mark passes. Oop, I got to do another. Wait a second. Oop, my bad. We're not. A roll call vote is ordered. The clerk, no. Are there any members who have not voted? Well, where are we? Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. I ask unanimous consent that the staff be authorized to make necessary conforming technical and clerical changes and to remove from the mark provisions that would cause the mark to refer to other committees or result in additional direct spending. Without objection, so ordered. There being no further legislative business before the subcommittee, this meeting is adjourned. I'm sure this time.